But cider was big. It was the biggest drink until the mid-1800s, and that's when we had a big German population come in, and beer started to catch on a little bit, but cider was still bigger. And then we had a purist movement also come through, and they started chopping down cider trees, apple trees. So it was a little less available, and then come Prohibition, it really killed the cider in America. And the reason being, after Prohibition was repealed in 1933, they just wanted alcohol. They didn't want I was asking you getting alcohol. Well, I can make beer, I can distill, I can make beer, because I can grow grain in the season. And I can distill whiskey as soon as I make that beer, or ferment grain, or whatever. Well, with cider trees back in the 30s, you could, if you planted cider trees, or good cider trees anyway, you wasn't going to get anything for about 5 or 6 years. There wasn't a little wait. So the beer and spirits really took over. And obviously, you probably recognize that cider has taken a big upswing in the last decade. It's been the largest growing up until probably this last year, where maybe the hard seltzer industry has really got going, but that will go away like Bartles James did. But cider has been the largest growing alcohol in the United States for this decade. So the story of our little farm here. I am a retired chiropractor. I was a retired chiropractor for about 28 years. I was in downtown Sumner. If you guys know where Ziegler Restorative Dentistry is in Sumner, a chiropractic healthcare center is right there too. That building, I own that I just sold it 2 years ago, but I own the chiropractic healthcare center, so I was a chiropractor in Sumner for 25 years, and I was in Puyallup 2 years. When I retired, I planned on retiring early, and I retired at 50. And I wanted something to do. I'm a little bit compulsive obsessive, and I did not sit around and golf 4 days a week. So, I've been making cider for 30 years, 25 years at that time, and I've been making brewing for 5 years prior to that. And I did a lot of amateur competitions, and I was much better at cider making than I was brewing. So after winning the best cider at the state fair 3 years in a row, my wife said, "You're an idiot if you open a brewery." I opened a cidery, but she didn't know that. I said, "I'm going to open a cidery, I have to buy a farm to put all the apple trees in." We bought this farm in 2014. We have put 2,600 apple trees on it.
Awesome.
Prior to that, this farm is the oldest farm in the Sumner Puyallup Valley. You know that. There may be some farms as old, but there are none older. This was part of the original. When you came in here, you saw it said Boatman Road out here. Willis Boatman was the first white settler in the Puyallup Valley. Him, and I'm trying to think of the other gentleman's name, they both got consecutive land grants at the same time in 1854, 302 acres, and Willis Boatman had this big section. And he started also with the orchards and with the fruit trees. When you got a land grant back then, it was mandatory that you planted fruit trees. It's always been that way from the Midwest all the way to the West. Johnny Appleseed started that when he would go out prior to the settlers getting there and plant seedlings, and he would sell that to the settlers coming in there. They were doing a good living doing that. You know, everybody thought he was real poor and everything. He did quite well for himself. But in 1854, Willis Boatman took this piece of property, planted an orchard, and then went to hops. He was here 20 years before Ezra Meeker got here. And then they started planting hops in the late 1880s. And the hop boom, obviously, we all know what happened to the hop boom in the Puyallup Valley, it crashed. And then the berries started. And then this was raspberries for over 100 years. Willis Boatman died in Sumner at the age of 99 in 1926. At that time, the property was starting to be broken up. And the Calvin family bought this piece of property, and they built the house that you see out here, the farmhouse, in 1931. And our farmhouse is an Airbnb. I don't live there, but it's a beautiful old. It's pretty much original farmhouse. It does have some add-ons, but the original farmhouse is still the Calvins owned it until 1967. And then two people, a couple named Don and Gwen Dewey bought it, and it was called Gwendolyn Farms. They had 3 daughters. They raised 3 daughters. They went through Puyallup High School. The youngest was 2 years ahead of me in high school, and they bought it in 1967, and they sold it to me in 2014. It was a beautiful farm when they had it. They actually took out some raspberries and started planting some apple trees in the 80s, late 80s and 90s. And then about 2000, when it getting older, they couldn't take care of the farm anymore, so they donated a lot of it to the YMCA to take care of the Friends and Servants. And the Friends and Servants did a great job for a decade, and then the last decade it really started to pick up again. And I approached Don and about renting some space here, putting in some trees, and he was very excited about that. But about 6 months after I started renting, he informed me that he had to sell the farm because unfortunately his son-in-law got ALS and he wanted to move over to the peninsula with his daughter and all that. So went over there. So he said, Rich, I gotta sell it. So he says, here's what I want. I said, all right, let's see if we can work it out. So I bought the farm. It did have a small orchard still up front. And then I planted trees up far in the back, and as soon as we got one apple off these trees, I tore out the whole orchard because it was old and diseased and stuff, and we left that orchard out there with no trees in it for about 3 years. And then we just started working this way with the trees. So the oldest trees on the farm are about 6 years old, the youngest trees are 3 years old. This year we took 93 bins of apples off the farm, which is about 45 to 50 tons of apples, about 45 tons, 45 tons. We pressed almost 6,600 gallons off the farm. And so we have that fermenting right now, and we have it aging right now. So a lot of our ciders are very traditional. That side of the farm is all British bittersweets on that side. This side of the farm is all American heirloom. So we do a lot of blending on that. We also do a lot of single variety. And then we do incorporate the traditional berries and Puyallup. So our very popular is our blackberry cider or raspberry cider. We have one called the Devilman cider. It's a raspberry habanero. Everybody asks, what's your favorite? You probably will never see me, if you come here, drinking a flavored cider. I like the traditional ciders. Our Davenette cider, our American heirloom cider, our John Star bone dry cider. Those are more traditional. So, does anybody have any questions about the farm? Everybody see they haven't been here. One of the reasons we never, ever, ever advertise. We are busting at the seams here Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, especially during the summertime. If you come here on a Thursday, Friday, or Saturday when we're open in the summer, every parking spot that you see on the gravel will be full, and the field down here will also be full, and then we start to work down all the way down the farm.
How much land do you have?
We have 7.5 acres here. 7.5 acres, all on the riverfront here. So, like I said, this is part of the original Willis Portland line ground, 1850.
How many different varieties of apples do you have?
We have about 10. So we have our British apples are the Davenette, the Arlington Mill, the Kingston Black, and the Balmer's Norman. Most of our apples you've probably never heard of. The John Star is the same apple as a John Bull, so that's the only one we've heard of. We also have some American Virginia crab apples, golden russet apple, a Harrison. They're all very old American apples, but they make really good. The Roxbury it's a really unique apple. It doesn't taste like something you bought at the store, but it does taste good. And makes good pies and makes great cider. The British apples, so our American apples are kind of our Chardonnays, kind of our white wines. Our British apples are kind of our red wines. So our coldest wine, our boldest cider is a Arlington Mill. It's very amber. It's got a lot of tannins in it. It just has a lot more body to it in general. And then we go all the way to our John Stars, which is our lightest body, lightest cider, very much more champagne-like. Our golden russet is much more Chardonnay type of wine. You got to remember, cider is wine. We make it out of fruit. We can't make anything out of grain here. We can't even have grain on premises because it's against the federal laws and stuff. So we are technically a winery, and I can produce wine here. We'll stick with the cider.
How long does it take to fully ferment? So if you harvest this year, when does that fermented batch become
available? So it depends on the cider that we're making. A lot of the ciders out there now are just kind of home cider makers that really, in my opinion, really don't know a lot about the craft of cider making, the tradition. we're trying to do it a little bit more traditional. So nothing that you can drink here will be less than 3 months old. Many places you'll go, if you go to a little cidery in a strip mall somewhere or something like that, that cider might be 2 weeks, 3 weeks or so. Nothing out of here is going to be newer than 3 months. A lot of stuff is going to be a year old, like the American Heirloom and the Davinet in there. That's a year old. We do quite a bit of barrel aging as well too. We do about 25 big oak barrels, and we do different techniques in that. Traditional old techniques. One of them is called box mash. So we'll take the cider, and every 2 weeks we'll go down there and stir up the cider, stir all the yeast stuff in it. And what that does is it gives it that buttery fatness that you'll get in a buttered Chardonnay or something like that. So to give a thinner cider a lot more body, and a full-bodied cider even more so. So it just makes it a lot more complex. Most ciders won't be ready for 10 to 12 months.
Do these age like wine?
They actually better. Cider, because of the acid content in cider, they will. I shouldn't say they age better. They age as well as far as maturing, but they last like a white wine doesn't age. But a cider that's a light cider will last 10 years. Yeah. Because the pH on cider is substantially higher than pH on wine. So the lower your pH, the higher the acid, the less chance there is of any kind of bacterial infection or oxidation. So I can grab stuff out of I call it our library, and we keep it down there and stuff. But I've got stuff from 2016 that we can pop open right now. You would not. You would not know that it wasn't just right on the top. So anything we have out of the tap is unpasteurized. Anything that's bottled, we pasteurize. And we do that because not all of our ciders, but most of our ciders have a slight bit of back sweetening. And we do not filter down to a complete sterile filtration, which is 0.045 microns or below. That gets all the bacteria, all the yeast out. We only filter down to maybe, and sometimes we don't filter at all. Some of our older ciders have been sitting for 8 months. We don't filter. It's a beautiful thing. We don't need to. We only filter because I want a pretty cider as well.
Rich, do you guys bottle here?
What's that?
Do you bottle here?
We do. We do about 1,200 cases a year out of here. We send about 300 cases a year to Japan. We don't send any out of state right now, and that may change with the COVID deal. There's some better options that we can do that we may start doing some online sales. We're available at Tacoma Boys and Total Wine, and our shops. You might see our tap at River's Edge, down here, or Cascade, or Rainier Growler, or over in Tacoma or Seattle. You might see us on tap different places. But we do the vast majority of our business out of here, and one of the reasons why we haven't advertised is because I have a hard time keeping up with the site making as it is.
Nice problem.
Nice problem, yeah.
We'll go through about just out of the tasting room, about 3 to 5 barrels of cider a week, which is about 200 gallons a week. Just out of the tasting.
But you have product for sale here.
Oh yeah.
We can buy it today.
Yeah, I can go get the square deal if you want to do that. If you guys want to taste the cider, please just let me know. I'll grab some. It's
Nice.
It's it doesn't matter. Like I said, our forefathers drank it for breakfast all the time.
So, Rich also hosts small gatherings.
We do. Like this Sunday, when you guys are going to be at 1 o'clock. Prior to that, we have the Seahawk party. So you can, for the Seahawk parties, there's only a couple available left, but and it's very reasonable. So the cost is $500 plus a 20% gratuity for the bartender. But the good thing is that $500 can include up to $500 worth of cider. So if you have 40 people and you drink 2 ciders, 2.5 ciders a piece, you pretty much got the place for free. It works out quite well. When they're all said and done, nobody's complaining about the rental costs. So we just do that so they're in case they've got a bunch of teetotals and there's $100 and we're open for 4 hours. We have done a few weddings in the past. We don't do a lot. Do it maybe 2 or 3 in the summertime. Unfortunately, I have to be done with Sundays. It's not worth us closing on Saturday. It's too busy. So, the grounds is quite beautiful. If you're welcome to come be and get some.